With just 2 weeks left until the 2025 NFL Draft, the buzz surrounding the Chicago Bears is reaching full throttle. And honestly, it's hard not to get caught up in the excitement when there are so many moving pieces and potential decisions looming for this franchise. One of the hottest names floating around draft boards right now is a standout running back out of Boise State, a guy who's been quietly climbing the rankings since the offseason began, and now he's front and center in discussions about what the Bears might do with their number 10 overall pick. What makes this especially intriguing is that the Bears, while not desperate for a running back, are clearly in the market for playmakers, guys who can change the dynamic of the offense from the moment they step onto the field. And this Boise State star? He fits that mold perfectly. League scouts have been raving about him behind the scenes, and while that buzz hasn't exactly exploded into the mainstream just yet, it's there. He's one of those prospects who's impressed enough on tape and in workouts to become a legitimate top 10 candidate. But let's talk about the real question here. Will he actually be available when the Bears are on the clock at 10? A few weeks ago, I would have said it was a coin flip, 50-50 shot. Now, not so much. I'd put those odds at well under 50%. The landscape has shifted. Momentum is building around a few teams ahead of the Bears who might seriously consider taking him, and the biggest threat might be a team sitting at number 6. It's not a lock that he goes 6th, but it's firmly in the realm of possibility. And that's what changes the calculus. One team in the top 4 has also been linked to him. Now, that would be a bold move, especially considering they've had their fair share of struggles developing a reliable backfield in recent seasons. Still, in a draft class that's as uncertain as this one, selecting a known commodity like this Boise State running back, someone who has proven production and a reputation for being a game changer, could be tempting even for teams not traditionally focused on the position. And that's where things get interesting. From pick 1 through 9, there's a real possibility that at least one team pulls the trigger on him, not because running back is their biggest need, but because they see the value in adding a player who can immediately elevate the offense. Teams are weighing long-term upside against immediate impact, and in that debate, this player has a strong case. Now, if he somehow slips past that number 6 slot, the dynamics shift again. It suddenly feels more real that he could fall into Chicago's lap. But again, I'd caution anyone against getting too hopeful. Sure, we've seen mock drafts listing him at 10 consistently. He's been the most common pick for the Bears in those projections. But the reality of the draft rarely mirrors what happens on paper. Teams are unpredictable, especially when trade offers start flying around. There's also been chatter about another franchise eyeing him before making a strategic move down the board. It's not the likeliest outcome, but it's not impossible. We know they're in the market for a quarterback, so there's a chance they shift direction depending on how the board plays out. Another team, further down the list, likely won't touch him. They've already invested heavily in the position, and unless something changes drastically, they're probably out of the running. That narrows the field a bit, but it doesn't make the path to 10 any easier. Then you've got to consider those wild card teams, the ones who may not seem like obvious fits but could surprise everyone. Maybe they don't view their current backs as long-term solutions. Maybe they want to build around a young, dynamic offensive piece. Maybe they've just fallen in love with this guy's tape. That happens more often than you think. But beyond the running back situation, there's another fascinating layer to Chicago's draft puzzle. Word around the league is that the Bears could be leaning toward other positions entirely, specifically looking at the defensive line. There's some talk that the team might be prioritizing a defensive tackle over an edge rusher, which has taken some fans by surprise. But here's where it gets interesting. Chicago has 2 second-round picks this year, and they could use those assets to move back into the first round if a player they like starts to slide. That flexibility opens up a lot of doors. Maybe they target a defensive tackle early and swing back for a pass rusher later. Maybe they grab an edge rusher at 10 and look to the interior with those second-rounders. The point is, they have options, and that's exactly what you want heading into a draft like this, where so much is up in the air. Now, when you look at the current defensive line group, it becomes clear why this is such a heated debate. Chicago has more depth at defensive tackle than at edge rusher. There are multiple guys who've shown flashes of being legitimate contributors on the interior. Some had solid seasons last year. Others have been promising in limited action, and even though a few didn't completely live up to expectations, they're still young and developing. One player in particular, who was a third-round pick not too long ago, might be transitioning more to an interior role, something he's done successfully in the past. That gives Chicago a decent rotation inside. But when you look at the edge position, things get thinner. They've got one solid option locked in, and maybe a second who will contribute, but after that, it's anyone's guess. It all depends on how much faith the team has in a young player who didn't see much action last year. Is he ready to step into a bigger role? Can another depth piece surprise and make the final roster? Those are the questions they'll need to answer. Meanwhile, there's another name worth keeping an eye on. He's got versatility and could be used both inside and on the edge. That kind of flexibility might be one of the key reasons they brought him in. And then there's this one intriguing possibility. Can a bigger-bodied player shift outside and play as a defensive end? He's done it before, and he's shown flashes of success. The Bears have played heavier edge defenders in the past, and with the right conditioning, maybe this guy is next in line. If it's true that the team values interior defensive line help more urgently than edge rushers, despite having decent depth inside, that opens up a whole new set of scenarios. It could even mean moving a player from the inside out if they believe he can handle it. That wouldn't be too far-fetched, given how the roster is currently constructed. Simply put, there are more options at defensive tackle than on the edge. That's just the reality. So the big question becomes, what's the bigger need? Edge or interior? Personally, I lean edge. The team needs more help there, at least for this upcoming season. But I'll admit, there's not a huge gap between the two. It's less about which position is more important overall and more about who's available when they're picking. If there's a clear difference maker at defensive tackle sitting there, it's hard to ignore that. And let's not forget about the offensive side of the ball, either. The left tackle conversation is very much alive in Hallis Hall. While the Bears have made moves to shore up the interior of their offensive line through trades and free agency, left tackle remains a long-term consideration. Even if they don't need a rookie to start right away in 2025, adding competition now could pay dividends down the line. There are two names that make the most sense here. Will Campbell from LSU and Armin Mimu from Missouri. Campbell is a 3-year starter who's been anchoring that LSU line on the left side, and he brings the kind of consistency and physicality teams crave in a franchise tackle. Mimu, on the other hand, has spent time at right tackle and even some at guard, but many scouts believe he's got the footwork and length to transition to the left side in the pros. There's a bit of a split in opinions on that, though, and we'll get into that more in just a moment. If neither Campbell nor Mimu is still on the board at 10, I honestly think it would be a stretch to go with another offensive lineman at that spot. Josh Simmons, for example, had potential early in the process before his injury, but there's just too much uncertainty around his health and development for him to be worth a top 10 pick. Josh Connerly is someone I actually like. He's gained momentum throughout the draft cycle. Reminds me of what happened with Darnell right last year. He ended the college season as a borderline second-rounder, then had a strong Senior Bowl and really boosted his stock. I can see him sneaking into the first round, but 10 still feels a bit rich. Outside of those names, I don't think there's another offensive tackle who justifies being taken that high. If the Bears really wanted to beef up their line, they probably addressed that enough in free agency to avoid reaching in the draft. But if Campbell is there, or if Mimu is the pick, I'm good with either of those. Just don't force a third name into the conversation just to say you fill the need. Now let's circle back to Mimu. The debate around him is getting louder. Some analysts are saying he might be better suited to play guard in the NFL. He's got long arms and good height, around 6'4", but there's another prospect out there who's closer to 6'6", a build that some teams favor more for the left tackle role. Mimu played right tackle because his team already had an entrenched left tackle. It wasn't really about limitations, it was just about fit. That said, there are scouts in the league who still aren't convinced he can make the jump to the left side at the pro level. And that's the dilemma. If you're the Bears and you're sitting at 10, do you take a guy who might not even play left tackle for you? Even if he's the best player left on your board, how does he fit your system? It's a real question, especially if you start thinking about moving Darnell right to the left side. Is that something he can realistically do? If not, are you just stacking talent without a plan? These are the conversations the front office is having right now. Let's not forget about another name that keeps popping up, Joe Toney. He might not be the flashiest prospect, but in terms of technique and reliability, he's solid. If I were running the show, I want a guy like that on the roster for more than just a one-year trial. Unless his performance drops off a cliff this season, I'm extending him. The thing is, he's had some injury issues, and while he did get a one-year extension, there's no guarantee he'll be around long-term. So when does the next man up actually take the field? If none of these prospects are clear answers at left tackle, then maybe using that 10th pick on one of them isn't the best move. Unless one of them can come in and start week 1, or at the very least, develop quickly, it's a tough sell. But here's the twist. One of those guys could absolutely end up being the starting left tackle this fall, depending on how things shake out with injuries and competition. That's the nature of the game. And speaking of competition, another player is reportedly scheduled to visit the Bears soon, possibly early next week. The reports don't suggest he's a lock for that 10th pick, and honestly, I wouldn't love it if that were the direction. If Chicago trades down, say, to 21 and adds more assets in the process, then maybe I'd be okay with that pick. But at 10, it's a tough sell. He's a powerful guy, no doubt, but I just don't see him as a top-tier prospect in this class, which already lacks true pass-rushing depth. He's solid against the run, and you always need players who can anchor against physical offensive lines, but being great at stopping the run alone doesn't make you a top 10 pick in today's NFL. That's just the truth. Still, if the Bears front office believes in his potential and sees something others don't, I'll trust their judgment for now. The reality is, whoever they draft at 10 has to be a difference maker. No question about it. The person making that call has a massive task ahead. There are so many layers to this draft, so many what-ifs, so many ripple effects based on what other teams do ahead of them. You trade up, you trade down, you stand pat. It all carries risk. And no matter what, every choice comes with scrutiny. But that's what makes this part of the offseason so captivating. Every day brings a new twist, another rumor, a new report that makes you rethink everything. So as we head into the final stretch before the draft, the big questions remain. Will that Boise State running back be on the board at 10? Will the Bears roll the dice on a defensive tackle? Will they prioritize edge or decide now's the time to find their future left tackle? All of that and more is still in play. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on our Chicago Bears. And don't be shy. Drop your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Caleb Williams, the golden boy of the 2024 NFL Draft and the fresh face of the Chicago Bears, may already be eyeing the exit door. Despite a record-breaking rookie season filled with flashes of brilliance, sources close to the situation suggest the 22-year-old quarterback is growing increasingly frustrated with the franchise's instability and lack of protection on the field. The question now lingers heavily over Chicago. Is their franchise savior already thinking of a way out? Williams entered the NFL with enormous expectations after capturing the Heisman Trophy and shattering records at USC. The Bears front office believed they had found their long-awaited solution at quarterback, naming him the starter in May and investing nearly $40 million in a fully guaranteed rookie contract. Williams delivered, setting multiple rookie records, leading dramatic comebacks, and nearly toppling passing legends in the books. Yet the magic of individual achievement was dimmed by the team's chronic underperformance, coaching controversies, and a relentless pass rush that saw him sacked 68 times, third most in NFL history. The low point came mid-season, as the Bears failed to score touchdowns in back-to-back games, leading to the firing of head coach Matt Eberflus. Williams, despite a historic streak of 354 pass attempts without an interception, was visibly shaken. Insiders say the QB has grown disillusioned with the lack of organizational direction and has begun weighing his long-term future, even quietly exploring what a potential trade might look like, an unthinkable prospect just months ago. As rumors swirl, fans are left clinging to the hope that Williams will stay committed to the rebuild. Chicago hasn't seen a quarterback of his caliber in generations, and his leadership on and off the field sparked hope for a new era. But the NFL is a business, and loyalty can be fragile when careers and legacies are on the line. The Bears front office now finds itself in crisis mode, not just rebuilding a roster, but potentially fighting to keep the heart of it. Whether this tension will evolve into a full-blown trade request or fade with off-season reinforcements remains to be seen. But one thing is certain: the Caleb Williams era in Chicago, once bursting with promise, now teeters on a knife's edge. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Chicago Bears, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.